Okay, hello everyone. Claire.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Vincent.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. I have lots of things to say and tell you.
Oh, good, good. Well, let's just do the beginning part of the show, which is always the same thing. So, I'm on partial shadow bound. Sometimes you can find my stuff, sometimes you can't. You can't find my first three videos for some reason. So I made vincentbrunoshadowban.blogspot.com where you could find them all. It is at the bottom of the screen and it is in the description box. So you can go there. And Claire, why don't you tell me some things you wanted to talk about? Well, excuse me. I go and I spread the link around, and if you could spread the link too, that would be great.
Yes, I'm doing that now. I sent you a link yesterday from a no-hide called The Idol Smasher.
James the Idol Snatcher. Yes, he's the one that made fun of me for being gay and cursed me out for being a pagan and everything. Yes.
Did you watch the video? Maybe I should have timestamped it, but at the time I couldn't because it
I
was
watched a
live.
little bit of it. I saw them all talking. I did watch a tiny bit of it. Yes, I saw James there talking, and there were other people, about four other people, right?
Yes, but it mentioned me, and well, there was a kind of a dark moment. Maybe you want to play it. It's actually the 51st minute.
Okay.
So,
Give me how did they know you?
well, I've been talking to them through John Gisela.
Oh, okay. Were they all Noahides or were they just
Um, as far as I know, it's James who is no
Yeah.
hided,
Yeah.
and um, so. But anyway, it was actually John Gisela who you know drew my attention to it, and I mean there weren't that many people listening, but I was pleased to hear. Well, not even my name mentioned, but I knew he was talking about secular Quranism without mentioning it, because obviously the whole idea is hateful to him. And I've also been trying to tell Vaughan that the First Amendment is based on Chapter 2, verse 256, and that Jefferson bought himself a copy of the Quran in 1765 when he was still a law student, and these comments keep getting deleted. So I don't know if it's just the YouTube algorithms or he's deliberately suppressing this piece of information because he's a pagan. Do you know who Von is?
No. Oh, he's a pagan?
Yes. Is why I keep saying, try and talk to these guys. They may not be your type because you probably identify them as being, rednecks and.
Well, if they're Noahides, I'll listen to them. I don't mind listening to a Noahide. I have very little interest in listening to white right-wing men speak. It's just repetitive and it's not solutions and it's not an ideology or anything like that. It's very, you know, dismantled and scattered and
Stupid and
stupid, and
incoherent.
they're not going anywhere and they have no power. It's not like I don't even fear them because they really don't have any power.
Yes, yes, but I suppose Von is interesting in that, well, you might approve of his attempt to be a polygamist. But
Oh,
basically, it was after talking, after hearing him complain that, he was talking about Waco and the people at Waco were polygamists. Apparently, I'm not sure, but I mean, it kind of explained why the Mormons were so persecuted right across America because they were polygamists, and obviously those Christians weren't going to have any of it because they feared that if they allowed Mormonism to flourish, they would soon outnumber Christians, and that would never do.
yeah, they were pretty bad to the Mormons and stuff like that, and I know that I was, messed up and
Yeah. And
you
and
know.
Von basically, well, tried to be a polygamist. I think he had something to do with the Mormons, and he said, well, actually, the American government doesn't like it, and you'll get shot like those people in Waco did, and yes, and I guess the Mormons have been told more or less that they can't, they would be guilty of bigamy if they had more than one wife. I don't know what the situation is, but they're no longer polygamists, or it's no longer legal for them to be polygamists.
No, it's no longer legal for them to be polygamous. There's underground Mormon polygamy. And there's the fundamentalist church of Latter-day Saints that has polygamy still. But yeah, I think it was just stupid that the government went after that. I think there's lots of things that general Christianity went after that would be helpful. You know what I mean? That would have been helpful to whatever. And I think that they've really, they kept the culture dumbed down. You know what I mean? It's just they didn't really like a lot of creativity or expressiveness or new
Or
ideas or anything too creative like that.
are you talking about the Mormons not being creative, or are you saying the government doesn't? Who are you talking about?
The
Not.
government doesn't, that
Oh,
Mormonism was probably a little bit too creative for them. A little bit too outside the box for them. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I guess there were all these men who were thinking, I don't want to, have more than one wife. Probably didn't want to be competed against by the Mormons, who would take all their women basically, because women actually don't mind polygamy, most of them, if they sort of think, many hands make light work. I don't really want to be responsible for all the needs of one man, and I wouldn't mind the company of other women in my household. Some do think like that. I have had Muslim men saying, my wife wants me to take another wife. Horrors. I can't afford it. So I bought her a cat. I don't even want a child. It's that kind of crazy thing.
Yeah, well, in this modern age, the women could work, so, it would be a little bit different. It wouldn't be so much a burden on the man. No, but no man, even a rich man, couldn't afford more than one wife and more than one wife and kids from more than one wife, and I mean, a working man today who's making a decent salary can barely afford one wife and any kids, let alone three or four wives, stay-at-home wives, and all the children that they produce. That's impossible. You
It's
know, I
horrific when you
well,
think about it.
I think the best way to do it would the wives would work from home, find work from home jobs, and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, and sort of look after each other's children while, they take turns going out to work or whatever it is that they're gonna do. But obviously this was immensely threatening to the monogamous Christians in America who were
yes.
thinking, oh my God, they're breeding like rabbits, and soon they'll outnumber us, and we can't allow it. So,
Yes,
out
they were
you
scared
go,
of it.
away, yeah, away you go from our state, Mormons. And
And I'm not the only person that has I've read this in old um non-Mormon commentaries. And even their enemies used to say that the Mormons were very racially sound people. They would comment on how beautiful and robust and rugged and healthy the Mormons were. And I remember reading it, they were saying, well, if they keep this up, they're going to become this master race and take over everything. And remember when we tried reading Remember when we tried reading Occult Theocracy by Edith Miller? She was an anti-Mormon agitator. Now, I still haven't found out what her problem was with Mormonism, but I mean, there are yes, throughout history, there's been people who obsessed about Mormonism. There are, and I'm not going to take that away from anyone. But most people don't get that obsessive about Mormonism. So I'm wondering what she saw in Mormonism that scared her so much.
Well, I guess these women would feel, oh my God, I'm just one of many wives. My rights will be so diminished. I'll be just a concubine or a slave girl, and I guess that might be going through the mind of a feminist, right?
Well, she wasn't a feminist.
Isn't she? Okay.
No, she was a fascist.
Oh.
No, she was a fascist. She was a right wing woman. And um,
Oh, wow.
I'm sure she held typical fascist values, but you know, she was an anti-Mormon agitator. Well, I mean, the other thing, she was extremely mainstream Christian, and she saw absolutely everything as a threat to Christianity. I mean, look, okay, she was anti-Jehovah's Witness, which in her time was called International Bible Students. They weren't called Jehovah's Witnesses yet. She was, I mean, she went after everybody. She didn't like any of those minor sects or secret societies or anything like that. She didn't like anything like that. She wanted everything to be like mainline Protestant Christianity. You know what I mean? She just wanted everything to kind of, she was one of those type of people that everything is a plot against Christianity. Absolutely anything which is not mainstream, dyed in the wool Protestant Christianity is a problem.
Hmm. It, I just wanted to mention that on Facebook, I tried to share this video with Jonas, and I got this error message saying, "Oh, you're moving too fast. You're temporarily blocked from um, tagging anyone." And he was the first person I thought of tagging.
Well, I did tag him on mine, and actually, it's good that you brought him up because I want to watch the show that you were on before we start reading. But let's talk about Jonas Hansen, who is just so disgusting. Jonas. Okay, so Jonas Hansen is a homosexual who lives in England. He's a former Jehovah's Witness like me. And he pretends to be all pro gay rights and all big and bad against homophobic religion, especially, the Jehovah's Witness religion and stuff like that. Um, but he's a typical Gentile homosexual in that as soon as he took up wind that I was posting about the Noahide laws, he started calling me crazy for obsessing over them, even though he admits he knows absolutely nothing about them. He's never studied them. He's never looked into them. He knows nothing about the politics, and yet he knows that if you're even discussing them, you're insane. Um, and that's just so typically Gentile, like homosexual, to just because they're shallow and inane. They think that if you're not shallow, if you're actually involved in something deep and are contemplating deep things and or are onto something deep or into something that the general population doesn't know about, then you're just off. I mean, to people like Jonas Hansen, if it's not on the BBC, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
It didn't happen. Nobody
Yeah, it
cared.
didn't happen. If it's if and also if the leftist hierarchy is not telling him to think about it, then he won't think about it. Okay, like a lot of leftists have no autonomy. They're very paint by numbers. There's a way to think, there's a reaction to every situation, and there's only one reaction. And if you know, don't fit into that
Pariah.
reaction,
Mhm.
you're a pariah. You know what I mean? And I also noticed about the left is they won't react to something that generally has not been categorized yet. They won't. Individual leftists tend not to like, if like with Noahide law, it still is not an opinion hasn't been formed on it by the thought guilds of the left, the thought leaders of the left. They haven't come out and given it either their stamp of approval or say, well, this is something that we need to stop and go against. So the left is
It's the
not even
same
going
with
to.
Muslims and quite a lot of people. It's sort of like, well, I'm not going to, it's above my pay grade to comment on this because, um, and even if I did, everybody would, come down on me like a ton of bricks because my opinion is not pre-approved.
Right, exactly. And now eventually, okay, yes, I have made the statement before that the left is able to work without leaders. The left is able to work without a strong man on top telling everyone what to do. So would eventually the bottom of the left start picking up Noahide and commenting on it and start a precedent of what to think on it somewhere? Yeah, that'll eventually happen, but I can tell you right now, it's not going to be, oh no, this is bad, this is wrong, this is something we need to condemn and get rid of from society, and it's not a good thing. That's not what the left is going to say. The left is going to say things like, well, not all Jews think like this, and there's different interpretations of what killing homosexuals means, and if you don't want to be too obsessed with this now, you don't want to think too hard about that, and you really don't want to criticize it that much, and if you do, you're crazy. You know what I mean? They're gonna be apologists for it. And right now, Jonas Hansen he's not going to put himself in a position where he actually endorses or goes against it. He's just saying, if you're talking about it, then you're insane.
Oh, this is so annoying. I actually posted a comment and I meant to cut and paste my comment on James's um, video, and I see that it's been deleted.
Oh, James
Oh,
the
no, no,
Idol.
no, actually, it's here. No, it's still there. Yes, it's still there. Sorry, I just couldn't find it. You have to click so many things, to see certain comments because
Okay,
you're
let's
not on
let's
this
watch
page.
your video. Hold on, give me a second. Let's watch your video.
Okay. Um, I will present.
Hold on,
Share
oh
screen.
yeah, oh that's right, you're gonna present. Go ahead.
I think you need to press the um, thing.
Oh yeah, here it
Yeah,
is. Okay,
okay.
go
And then
ahead.
I think it's a 50. Okay.
Will become ruin. Well, God willing, that's done with. So they're having themselves a nice little revolution over there in the Holy Land, aren't they?
Oh, God. What a mess. What's the matter?
Doreen was saying right now the Jewish people are finally becoming sovereign in their own nation. They're standing up and taking. I try to understand Israeli politics. I've done my reading and I've watched some documentaries and some videos on YouTube, and it changes every year, every 5 years or whatever, and it's all with different rabbi groups, and and then they switch and they end. It's a yes. My goodness. I can gripe about our system, but hey, we're not Israel, so hey, that's good. Now the state's not going to last forever, and I look forward to that which replaces it. I really do. This administration of ours does not act on behalf of the people. I'll just make that clear in public right now. Yeah, it does not act on behalf of these people. I chatted with John on a hangout Friday, last Friday, and we had a British Muslim lady come in, and was saying America doesn't have a fixed system of morals to protection of rights. Of course, you know where she was going. She's Islamic, so of course she's going to the Quran, the Islam can give you that. You still have the First Amendment. Really, how can we have freedom of? She just didn't know what she was talking about. And I'm like, well, I'll take Torah. I've already got a system, yeah. And the neat thing about is us is yes, we can have a conversation and we can let the individual decide, and we do good things a lot of times in our country. Thank goodness we have freedom of religion. But we got to work on things. I'm glad to see people are fighting back. I'm glad to see more and more schools getting more and more flack from parents for putting pornography in their libraries and letting perverts teach their children. I thought the pushback honestly would stop. I thought that they would get tired and do something else. I have very little faith in my country, so a lot of the times, and they're not. They're just getting more mad. That makes me very happy inside. I'm a little bit of an advocate for as I'm called an advocate for their child. You advocate. That's very good. We like that you advocate for your child. I'm like, I know as advocating. I'm just dad. Dude, I'm that's the word the parents use nowadays. That's the new thing. So I'm advocating for my child.
I think that's
and
it.
they appreciate
Really,
that. They're on my side.
Okay.
he's basically rambling now.
Keep it up, America. Fight like hell
Yeah.
in a civil manner. Rosalie, you got anything to say? You have to stop talking all night.
No, I'm good.
All right.
I'm good. You just carry on. You're having a great conversation, so it's like, yeah, okay.
Get me talking, get me going.
Claire?
Well,
Yes.
Yeah, are we going to keep listening?
Oh, I thought you were going to stop. Okay, that's for me to do. Okay. Yeah,
yeah, well, like he said he would take Torah. He already has a system. So then there we have an example of someone who's chose Torah over the Quran.
Yeah, but I've explained that the Noahide laws would come into conflict with the First Amendment, and that's when he said, oh, well, you need to think about it. And then he said, I'm going to take Torah, but it's sort of, well, which one it comes into conflict with the First Amendment. So I assume that a lot of uncommitted Americans would say, can we have the one that is least restrictive? Oh, and which doesn't come into conflict with the First Amendment.
Well, no, yes, but see, you're trying to sell secular Quranism today. We're preparing the soil for Noahidism tomorrow, okay? You're just trying to come in and saying, okay, this is how you all are right now, and you're not ready for anything deeper, and so I'm going to present you with this halfway house, to Islam, and take it or leave it. And we're not doing that. We're not trying to install a system yet. So right now what we're doing, we're just prepping the government, we're prepping the politicians, we're prepping the education system, we're prepping the culture. We're doing all this, and we're going to do that for a generation, and then we'll start slowly instituting it in ways, and then we'll eventually get to the Constitution.
Who is we? It's just you.
Nobody. No, excuse me. The Jews and the Noahides who are behind the Noahide movement are doing that thing right now. They're inculcating the government.
Yes, it would be better for you, and not mentioning the penalty for idolatry and blasphemy and adultery and sodomy, which you already know.
Which I know, but I mean, I talk about it, but the Jews and let's not talk about the Noahides because they're a little bit more uppity, but the Jews that are pushing, the Orthodox Jews that are pushing Noahide rule right now are not talking about decapitations. Okay,
Yes, of course not, because they'd be frightened of those Christians who would object to it, as well as the atheists and agnostics. So I'm just
I
saying,
know, but what I'm
it's
saying,
very traumatic getting somebody to change their religion. And when you're talking about a whole country, or a whole civilization, it's going to be really difficult. So just get it right instead of having to do it 10 years down the line. Ooh, we have to change our religion again. Sorry, we didn't quite choose the best one.
no, well, at first they don't have to change their religion. At first, everything is going to be said to be permissible. Okay, Christianity will be said to be shatuf and permissible. Islam, even though it is not permissible, will still be said to be permissible. Hinduism will be called shatuf and will be permissible. Nobody will have to change their religion at first. At first, they're going to say you are all Noahide compliant just as you are. Don't change a thing. That's what they're
Yes, I
going to be
know
told.
your plan, and I'm afraid you're not going to get away with it because the Muslims are onto you.
They're not. No, they're on to me personally. They're not. The Muslims. They're
You are
not.
the most energetic no-hide promoter
I
of
know.
no-hidism, and they already know your twisted reasons, and they know about your association with me, and they know my position on it.
Yes, but most people are not going to be dealing with me directly, and most Muslims are not smart enough to see that, well, okay, Vincent Bruno is actually laying the plan out on the table as it is. But you know what? These rabbis aren't, so they're not going to be all bold and forceful at the rabbis. They might know what the rabbis' plan are, but the rabbis haven't come out and stated it. So the Muslims are not going to just come out and pounce it on, like, because then they'll look like conspiracy theorists, and the rabbi's going to say, "What? We don't believe in any of that. We're not Vincent Bruno. He's just some radical. Don't listen to him. We have no plans like that whatsoever." The Muslims know very much if they tried to pounce on the Jews with all this so-called conspiracy theory stuff, and start saying they're going to start beheading Gentiles, that they would just look like assholes. I'm the only one that can say that.
Hmm.
Go
But the
ahead,
thing
try
is,
get all your Muslim friends. Try to
I
get
just
your
think
Muslim friends. Try to get your Muslim friends to turn about Noahidism. Let them
they
mention
don't
even
care
one.
about it either. They'll just be thinking, why should we care about this little ant when we have the elephant of American foreign policy and their crazy globo homo policies oppressing us? We're not going to be talking about the no-hide laws, which nobody believes in anyway.
People do believe in it, but yeah, I know that's why they're stupid Gentiles.
Yeah,
They think because it's small, it's irrelevant. That's very stupid and Gentile.
but even if it gets bigger, there will be the arguments against it. To Americans, it's going to come into conflict with your First Amendment, so you have to make up your mind.
No, Claire,
What you want to believe.
you know that the rabbis are lying and saying that it allows freedom of religion, right? You know the rabbis are
Yeah,
lying.
yeah, yeah, and Muslims can easily call them out. And there's nothing in the Torah that says anything about freedom of belief. Because we already know that the penalty for idolatry and blasphemy for Jews is death.
And
And,
for
and, and that was
Gentiles,
why
and for
Jesus was
Gentiles.
executed. No,
Yes,
no,
but
for Jews too.
yeah, it's for Jews too, but it's for Gentiles, but no rabbi. I'm the only one that can say out loud that idolaters would be beheaded and get away from it. Let a bunch of Muslims go running around and telling people Jews are going to behead people for idolatry. See what happens to them. They'll be laughed off the
Yeah,
stage.
yeah, that's why they disdain to even discuss no-hidism, because they'll be saying, we have bigger fish to fry. We have all the stuff that the American
And again,
government
that
is
goes
doing to us in America and to Muslims outside America. You
again, that
know,
goes back to being a Gentile. It's too small of a problem to
no,
even
it
think
isn't.
about.
Well, why would they bother? And even if it became a problem, the arguments would be for Muslims to Americans. It's like, you know about the no-hide laws, you know what the Jews did to Jesus for just for saying his papa was God. You know they wanted him dead, and idolatry, as you know, is death for the worshippers of the golden calf. It's already in the consciousness of anybody who knows any of the stories of the Bible. They were executed. The worshippers, I think they even have a number. I think, what, 2,000 of them were executed by Moses.
Yeah, and it was only the men. Well,
Right.
supposedly only the men fell for idolatry. Supposedly, well, that's what I read, I think. And only the men fell into idolatry from what the story says. But no, look, this is what's going to happen. Muslims are too stupid to pounce on this while it's small. Okay, they're going to let it sit there. They're just going to say, "Oh, who cares? Who cares? Let it fester. Let it sow its seeds. Let it spread everywhere. Like, who cares? Because we're stupid Gentile Muslims." And then by the time it does start getting big, then you're going to get up off your ass, and then you're going to try. And the Jews have already won over all the politicians,
No,
and
no,
have
they
all.
won't win. They've just lost. The religious Jews have had to back down about reforming the Israeli Supreme Court.
So
Now,
what?
I
Yeah,
have
but this is short term. Stop thinking like a Gentile. Okay, they
to
they
to talk.
lost the
I have
battle,
to
but they haven't lost the
talk.
war. They haven't lost the war. They're gonna win the war. They
No, no.
lost.
Okay, are you saying that all these Jews are suddenly going to become all religious and all
No,
observant? Well, exactly, and
no. I'm just
and
saying that the
therefore Jews as a group have lost moral authority. And whatever
so have
you think of
Muslims.
Muslims, no, whatever you think of Muslims, there will be a higher percentage of Muslims who will be prepared to defend Islamic principles than there will be Jews prepared to defend, well, even the no-hide laws.
No, as long as there are a few Orthodox Jews teaching and they have Noahide students, then the Orthodox will win the war because if one Orthodox man can convert 1 billion Noahides, and if you have
Where
a
did you get that from? You just plucked that figure out of the
no,
air.
but he couldn't. No, one Orthodox man. Do you know how many Noahides in today's uh, era with videos and YouTube and Facebook and social media and telephones? Do you know how many people he could bring into Noahidism if he was a
Yeah,
charismatic
and they
Jew?
will be defeated by the argument, especially for Americans, which is that the no-hide laws come into conflict with the First
They're
Amendment.
not
You
going to
know,
say they're not going to even be talking about that for another 25 years. Nobody's
well,
going to be
okay,
talking
well,
about repealing the First Amendment for a long time. Nobody's going, and I'm the only one that would say that. If they don't hear it from the Jews' mouth, they're not going to believe it. And when the Jews do start saying it, they're going to put it in ways that are not so scary or offensive. And you have to also realize they've already prepped the soil for this. They've already taken 30 years to get people thinking in this direction.
okay, well, I think it would be an easy thing for me to get these Muslims to confront these Orthodox Jews promoting the no-hide law, saying, you know, what's your view on Christianity and what's your view on Islam? Why haven't you been promoting Islam?
Well,
And
because
do you
Islam is
really
a
want to
religion.
make the Americans repeal the First Amendment? Is that your view, or what makes you think you can do it when half of global Jewry are basically heretics who would have been stoned to death if Jews were taking their own law seriously?
I think that you're expecting most people to be congruent, cogent thinkers. Most Gentiles are not smart enough. Most Gentiles are
I'm
not
just talking
smart
about
enough. Wait,
Muslim.
most Muslims, well, maybe Muslims are smart enough, but most Gentiles in the West are not smart enough
Yeah,
to
because they
understand.
wouldn't know about these rules, right? The people who have a system of rules, like Jews, like Muslims, or even no-hides, they're just smarter than the people who don't have rules. Who just sort of think, oh, I feel like it, so I'm going to do it. Oh, I hurt because I did this stupid thing. Maybe I'll remember next time not to do it. Until the urge to do it again overwhelms me. And this is to clear blue water between people who have rules about what to do and what not to do, and people who just do whatever the hell they feel like. And
Okay,
this is
granted, Muslims would be smart enough to know that you cannot have the Noahide laws in your constitution and the First Amendment at the first time. Most people in the West, however, are not intelligent enough to figure that out, and the Jews will obfuscate things. How do you say that word? Obfuscate? Obfuscate?
obfuscate, I think. Obfuscate.
Obfuscate. Obfuscate obfuscate things enough that the Gentiles will be too confused in the West to really pick up on that nuance, even though it's not nuance, even though it is right in your face, even though it was written out in black and white. They're too cowardly to think for themselves. Okay,
No,
if
I
the
mean, let's talk about James. He's a no-hide, and he's sort of getting it and not really getting it. I mean, maybe we should even play it again, just by the way he was sort of wittering on. Actually, maybe we entered that video too soon because he
Well, we
he's
can watch it a little bit. We have to start reading because it is getting a little later for me, and it's a short reading today. But if you listen to James, James is lying. He said, "Well, he said I'm glad that we have freedom of religion in America." That's a lie. That's not his ultimate plan. His ultimate plan is not to have freedom of religion in America, but he's going to lie. This is how it's going to work because the Noahites and the Jews are just going to outright lie to everybody. And when the Muslims come and say, "Oh, you're trying to behead everyone," they're going to say, "Oh, what are you, some kind of conspiracy theorist, anti-Semite? What are you talking about?"
right. So, do you know for a fact that James knows about the penalty for idolatry and
Of
blasphemy?
course, he knows the penalty for idolatry and blasphemy.
Did you discuss it with him, or
Claire,
are
if
you
you're
just assuming it because he's a no-hide?
Claire, I think learning that there are at least punishments. Okay, if it's not decapitation, he knows that there's at least a punishment for it. Okay, there's at least a punishment. Every Noahide knows that the Noahide laws come with punishments.
Yes.
Yeah, so he knows he has to know it's punished.
Yeah.
Okay, he has to know that it's punished, and he would have to know that idolatry is punished, and he does know that. And that's but he's going to tell them, James is first generation Noahide, so of course he has to tell people, "Oh, I believe in the freedom of religion in America," and he has to tell people that Noahidism is about freedom of religion. And when these Muslims come out and say, "Oh no, you want to decapitate people," they're going to say, "What are you talking about?" And Muslims are going to look like a bunch of insane haters.
No, they just have to refer to the Talmud that says
I know, but Jews
that
are
has
just
all
going to
these
say, "You don't know what
penalties.
you're talking about." And they're going to tell them that's not what they mean. And they're going to come up with lies. And you know what they're going to tell them? Like, that means that you're cut off from Israel spiritually. It doesn't mean you're actually beheaded. You anti-Semite. Stop spreading hate and lies.
Okay, well then you undo a person. Well, if they say and do things that amount to one of the 36 capital offences, you can say, well, you're no longer Jew, so you're. I mean, it would actually be the best way of saying there is no Jewish problem because there are hardly any Jews unless you're afraid of these old rabbis and nobody even listens to. I mean, there are all sorts of ways that Jews can kind of, bring themselves into existence and kind of disappear with my register of Jews, which is intended to assist them, really.
Well, yeah, but there are going to be religious Jews that do keep all of the commands of the halakha and who are yet learned in the Noahide laws and who are willing to lie and malign no Muslims who would come
And
out
never
and
talk
dare
about
look if
very rarely talk about it. I mean, amongst themselves, you have a few like No Hide World Convention or No Hide, that one, that, that YouTube
Noahide World
channel.
Center, Noahide World Center.
Yeah. So, and they actually they're quite nice and that they answer. Maybe you should try trolling. Well,
Yeah,
that's
well,
my
I will try, but Claire, once this accelerates, nobody is going to listen to a bunch of Muslims running around telling people Jews are going to decapitate people. That you should have learned that from me because look, everyone needs to learn from my experience. No one is going to oppose these things. Nobody is going to stop them. Nobody is going to run out into the streets and say Jews are trying to behead everybody. Nobody is going to do any of these things.
Well, I mean, all a Muslim has to say is that, just look at what it says in their scripture. They used to be to execute people who are guilty of these things. But in our scripture, it says nothing about executing people. In fact, we don't even mention blasphemy in the Quran. And if we mention idolatry, it's only with disapproval. We don't prescribe a punishment in the Quran for idolatry. So, and we've got chapter 2, verse 256, which is what the First Amendment is based on. So
Yeah.
the Quran
Look,
is an
the rabbis are
infinitely
not
more
going.
liberal document than the Noahide laws.
Yeah, and the
If you're
rabbis
not
are going to.
sure if God
The
exists, then it would be rational to go for the less restrictive divine
Yeah,
scripture.
Claire, and the rabbis are going to confuse everything by saying, no, you're not executed for it. No, there are no punishments. They're going to lie and confuse everyone. And they know better than the Muslims, and everyone's going to say, well, the rabbis know better than the Muslims, and they're saying you're lying. Yes, there is.
No,
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
you
okay,
can
but there.
easily make the point
Oh,
that the rabbis are talking about. What?
look, all you need is one rabbi saying no, that there are no beheadings, and one rabbi saying yes, there are beheadings, and you have the confusion that you need in order to stay in power. And look, people are going to be more accepting of an ambivalence about beheadings from Jews than listening to Muslims.
Yeah, because Muslims actually exist, and nobody denies that they don't exist, and they've heard of them in their book and all that, and nobody has heard of the Noahide laws, which is why they're not scared of them and won't take them seriously.
Yeah, so things are going to go in the Noahide direction. It's not going to work for Muslims.
I don't see how you can make that prediction based on what you just said. There's no reason why Noahidism is going to be more successful.
No, I'm telling you that
than
nobody's going to believe this Muslim smear campaign against it.
they're not even taking it seriously, so you can't even say for
Well, no,
sure.
they are taking it. It's being taken more seriously than it was 10 years ago, Claire.
No,
Stop
you
being,
have
Claire, it's getting annoying talking to you because you're such a Gentile, because you're unable to see how things will unfold, and you're unable to see beyond absolute immediacy, and you're unable to see that if somebody's lighting a flame near a barrel of hay, that it'll light on fire. You're just saying, oh, so what? They're lighting a match and they're throwing it on the hay. So what? There's no fire. Nothing's happening. Like, no, okay. Like, you're like, oh, yeah, I'll just let them pour the gasoline on and light a flame. Like, let's just sit back and do nothing while this happens and talk.
I'm saying the hay is very wet.
No, it's not very wet, Claire. I mean, I just don't think that you're clever enough to do what the Jews are doing, and so you don't believe in their plan because you couldn't ever accomplish anything like that. You personally could never do anything on this level, so you're just not scared.
So your idea is to well, I think Jonas going back to the subject of Jonas is that he can't see your motivation in promoting the Noahide laws, which I think he gets it that it's going to execute homosexuals like you and him. So I guess
Oh, no, he doesn't seem to get it. And I'm sure he doesn't believe that. Okay, I'm sure if I showed him a video of an Orthodox Jew who came from a traditional yeshiva and was well respected in Israel, and he came out and said homosexuals should be decapitated, number one, he probably still wouldn't believe it. Number two, he probably wouldn't care if he did believe
because
it.
they would think that the Jews have no power to do it. They would never be able to do it in Israel, and that means they won't be able to do it anywhere else.
Yeah, because he's a Gentile. He's a
country.
stupid homosexual, typical shallow Gentile who cannot think about anything beyond and the absolute immediate. Is it happening right now? No, then I don't care. And it could never happen because it's not happening right in the moment. To the Gentile, World War III can't happen because it's not happening right now. Anything that's not happening right now in your immediate sense is impossible to you.
No, I am
Yes.
understanding that you're making a prediction, and I'm asking you for the basis of your predictions. And it just seems to be a kind of wish fulfillment. You know, it's going to be like that because you wish it to be like that.
No, because the
And,
Jews
and,
are working
and the
really
thing is,
hard
you're not
for it.
even going to be around for it. And so I can't say, oh, Vincent, it didn't happen as you predicted because you and I will both be dead. So I don't know why you don't become a
Okay,
secular Quranist
before I
and win all the
die,
arguments.
Noahidism will be much more advanced than it is right now. I've been working on this for 10 years and it's much more advanced. I've seen the movement grow. I've seen knowledge of the movement grow. I've seen resistance to the movement grow, though resistance has grown much slower than people who are willing to defend it. You know what I mean? People who like Jonas who are willing to just call you insane for even talking about it. You know what I mean? The most people, as knowledge of this spreads, are just going to become apologists. They're just going to say, "Oh, don't worry about this. This is nothing," and and that just gives the Jews cover. You know, look, everyone is going to say that this is nothing, this is nothing, this is nothing until it is something. They're going to let it grow and grow. People are not going to stop talking. When there's 10 million Noahides, people are going to say it's nothing. When there's 30 million Noahides, people are going to say it's nothing. And when even if violence starts breaking out, they're not going to get it until it's much, much too late. Much too late.
My proposals would allow Jews to do their thing with the no-hide laws and say, oh, we've finally done what we were made God's chosen people to do, which is to rank the four Gentile religions, declaring Islam the most no-hide and Christianity the least. And therefore, you Westerners, you ought to be able to act on that information and dump Christianity and adopt Islam. Oh, but you're a bit scared of Islam and you're not really sure. Well, you can have secular Quranism. There you go. And then everybody, then it's nicely resolved. The Jews will have resolved, discharged their obligation. It's like, well, we've done it now with the Noahide laws. What better way than teach Gentiles and about the Noahide laws by other than by ranking their religion, which we have now done. It's very easy to say, 1, 2, 3, 4. Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity in that order, and then we'll have done what we're supposed to do. Now leave us alone, and whatever questions you have, go to the Muslims.
Okay, Claire, number one, that's not happening. Number two, if you've noticed, people are more opposed to secular Quranism than they are Noahidism. There are more anti-secular Quranists than there are anti-Noahides. When people hear secular Quranism, it seems absolutely everyone hates it and says absolutely not. When people hear Noahidism, no one says no. They just say, don't think about that. Okay, that's the answer is
I
not
think
no.
Noahides are white. I think that's their racist problem. They think
No,
of Islam
this
as brown and secular
oh
Quranism as
no, they
black.
are
Noahides, it's like,
most
oh, it's
Noahides are not
nice
white.
looking.
Most Noahides are not white. Most Noahides come from the third world. Most Noahides, I mean, are in Africa, in Latin America, in the Philippines, in India, in places like that, and in
Oh, but
some
Vincent,
Muslim.
you already know that most people, when you ask them, oh, what they think of when they think of a no-hide, it's a blank. It's really a blank in their minds.
I know, but Noahides are not scared of Islam because it's brown. That's not. You can't just pin it on that. Okay. The other,
Well, they're Islamophobes.
no, but Noahidism is not a religion. Islam is a religion.
I think you can split hairs, but basically, if you're forbidding idolatry and blasphemy for Gentiles, you are actually telling them to worship the Abrahamic
No,
God.
I'm not. No, you're not. You're just look, it only tells you what you physically cannot do. You physically cannot act out in worship. You cannot speak out in worship. You cannot light incense in worship. You cannot bow in worship. You cannot do anything like that. It regulates your behavior. It doesn't regulate your belief. You want to believe in polytheism? Go right ahead.
Well, they can't. But as long as they say, oh well, the moment they say I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Christian, they get beheaded, don't they?
Well, it depends on how stringent the
Probably you
government
were
is.
going to say probably depends on I mean when before the revolution or after the revolution. But I think I'm saying that most uncommitted Americans who are neither Noahide nor Muslim nor Jew nor Christian will be saying we kind of like the First Amendment and we'd like it to stay. And and I'm pointing out to you, Vincent, that you're being very un-American.
I'm not being un-American. I'm an accelerationist. I don't really have a Noahide agenda. The only thing is that I believe is that it has to climax before we can defeat it. It has to climax. I want it to climax. I want to make it climax as fast as possible so that the revolution could happen as fast as possible and the revolt happens as fast as possible. And also, it works in my favor for it to go faster because then the Jews can't plot and plan as well. Okay, I'm throwing them off. They want this to go slow. The Jews don't even want the Noahides getting aggressive right now. They're mad at the Noahides like Alan Cecil for even daring to talk negatively about Christianity. They're not ready for that. They're just like everybody, let's just play nicey, nicey, nice and happy, happy, happy and not talk about Christianity yet. And like, let's wait for the Jews would take 5 generations if it was up to them, to be honest with you.
I'm
They
also an accelerationist. I am an accelerationist,
no,
aren't
but
I?
not no, not
But for
you're not
secular
trying to accelerate your enemy.
with American characteristics, because the quickest way for it to go global is for America to adopt it.
And that's not the definition of an acceleration. Accelerationist pushes the opposite of what they want.
Well, I'm a different kind of accelerationist, and I want to accelerate the propagation and adoption of secular Quranism. I don't have a twisted agenda. What you see is what you get.
Okay, let's start reading, or we're never gonna. We have a short chapter this time. Okay, so this one's called Utopia. The dreams of men concerning the latter days are a common index to the ideals of life. For no one will think of the future except as his own. These dreams, like their close kin, the night dream, are extraordinarily difficult of interpretation, much more difficult than the psychoanalyst would have us believe. But on occasion, they are presented with unmistakable clarity and directness by the prophets. The functions of the prophets as a seer and a foreseer have been confounded for this reason. The true prophet sees into the ultimate longings of his group, longings which may even run counter to the day's desires. These ultimate longings are shifted into the far future beyond the reach of temporal complications and compromises, and he that unveils a man's inmost longing wins credence as having foreseen the future, the true finality of life. I have chosen Plato's Republic and our own Hebrew prophets as the basis of contrasting between your dreams and the later days and ours. Between your longings for perfection and ours, I have chosen Plato because of all the seers who have sprung up in your midst. He is the most universally accepted, and of all utopias your thinkers refer to, his most frequently. That is to say, he comes nearest to your desires. Hence, in discussing him, I am discussing you. I have used the phrase of all the seers who have sprung up in your midst because it is true that you still mention the Hebrew prophets more frequently than Plato, true. But it is a singular and final significance that as soon as you develop free intelligence and desire expression for it, you turn from our prophets to your own. The overwhelming bulk of your intelligent discussion of life and the end of life centers around free philosophers or seers, and among those you have made Plato preeminent. Plato's analysis of the ideal life still approaches your dreams most intimately. Investigating the true nature of morality, Plato bodies forth his ideal of perfect state, and with the license of a dream given free rein to the imagination, unfolds step by step his famous republic. No considerations of practicality or feasibility were there to check the career of his fantasy. The republic is to him life as it should be and as he would like to see it, the apotheosis of human aspiration. Contrast this with the vision of his almost contemporaries, the Jewish prophets, and in this contrast you will find again the key to our essential difference. The Republic of Plato is an institution organized with infinite ingenuity and dedicated devoted to the delights of the body and the mind. It draws its inspiration from the pure joie de vivre of the ideal man of perfect physical and physic and psychic health. You would seek in vain that extraneous compulsion of a God which the Hebrew call inspiration. There is no somber passion driving to creation, no intolerant demands impossible of fulfillment. It is not God creating man in his mold, it is man creating God or the gods in his mold, gods that are companionable and comprehensible. So making man gods, human gods, which is correct, which is what I want to do. He sets before you a pretty intriguing little model, a city not too big to lose the characteristics of a city, which sundered from the universal humanity, untouched by the universal hunger, restricts supreme good to the possession of a comfortable, secluded group. It is a city for the prosecution of the happy and of artistic life, the harmonies and the symmetries shall be carefully guarded, the satisfaction of body and mind wisely and cleverly pursued. Nay, in that supreme human product there shall even be astounding triviality, a censor. There is a wealth of ingenuity devoted to these questions. How shall children be initiated into the art of war? How shall cowards and heroes be treated? What about the plundering of the slain and the perpetrations of deeds of battle and monuments? Now it is not of the greatest moment that the work of war shall be well done, or is it or is it so easy that anyone can succeed in it and be at the same time a husband or a shoemaker or a laborer or any other trade whatever? Although there is no one in the world who would become a good draught player or dice player by merely taking up the game at unoccupied moments instead of pursuing it as his special study from childhood? And will it be enough for a man merely to handle a shield or any other of the arms and implements of war to be straightway competent to play his part well that very day in engagement of heavy troops or in other military services? It is not the greatest is it not the greatest moment that the work of war should be well done? This is a vision of human perfection, for it never occurs to Plato that perfection in humanity precludes the possibility of war, which is, Noahide say there won't be war once everyone becomes Noahide, right? So war is supposed to fade, whereas I don't know if that's supposed to be. War is not supposed to fade, I guess, under the Gentile utopia, right? I mean, we're
Well,
warriors, right? The Gentiles, according to these people, are bloodthirsty savages.
I wouldn't say um, that war would be abolished under secular Quranism, even if it went global. But global, I'm just saying it wouldn't be as bad as it is now because there would be, rules of warfare and principles of international relations, and it just wouldn't be so bad. I'm certainly not going to guarantee that there isn't, there won't be any war because I mean the whole point about these rules is that God kind of knows that people are going to go to war with each other from time to time, and is saying, well, you don't have to, commit atrocities. You don't have to poison their wells. You don't have to, murder non-combatants. And, it's all a bit unnecessary. And if you have to have prisoners of war, you mustn't torture them, and you must, treat them properly. It's that kind of thing.
Well, I think the thing that why Noahidism might get rid of war is because it doesn't allow religion. So the thing is that the separate nations are supposed to have their own separate characters, but if you are all under the Noahide laws and you're not allowed to create your own new religion, then there's going to be very little deep ideological difference between the nations. There'll be cultural differences, there'll be racial differences, there'll be temperamental differences and things like that, but there's not going to be like a fundamental world philosophy and difference. There's, you're all going to be under the same book. You're all going to be under the same rules, and you're not going to be able to create nonsense to fight over. You're not going to be able to fight over is God one or three, or is God a trinity or not, or is Muhammad or Jesus the prophet, or
Well, they will still have political and theological disagreement, and I think if you forbid them from having a religion, all the more will they cling to theirs. So, you have to, yeah, I mean, make sure that you don't provoke them into clinging to their religion harder. By
Well,
forbidding it, it's like, oh, just you carry on worshipping your stupid idols.
no,
As long as
no.
you pay
Look,
tribute, we don't care.
we're not going to do it slowly. We're not just going in and telling people to give up their religion, one, two, three. I mean, we're not even telling a whole generation to do that. And actually, I'm going to tell you, the first generation is not going to be told to do that. Well, right now, the Jews are not going to go to anyone and say change or drop your religion. They're not doing that yet. They're not at that phase yet. They're just getting their children to take a moment of silence in school. Okay, not even saying the Noahide laws. They're just Chabad is just getting a moment of silence in school. Like they didn't even like enter the Noahide laws in yet. This is like a pre step. Okay, just a silence. That's how slowly they move. They're not asking you to pledge allegiance to the Noahide laws yet. All they want is a blank moment of silence with no meaning.
That's why I
Okay,
have such a problem with these rabbis. It's like, that there's no need for you to tell Gentiles, not to eat an animal while it's alive, to establish a court and legal system, and to forbid murder, rape and theft. I mean, there's no need for those five. I mean, the only two that you need to go on about would be idolatry, and they still refuse. They don't want to upset all these Christians. And it's like,
well, okay. There's also in Judaism the concept of profaning the name, and so you're not. Look, it's the kind of same concept that if a Jew finds a Gentile in a pit, if the Jew thinks that let's say that a Jew finds a Gentile in a pit. If the Jew knows that no other Gentile will find him there and get him out, and the Gentile will not have the opportunity to tell other Gentiles, a Jew found me in a pit and left me there to die and did nothing to help me. If the Jew thinks that there's a possibility that the Gentile will get out and tell other Gentiles that the Jew left him there, he has to get him out. It's an absolute obligation. You have to get the Gentile out of the pit. If the Jew thinks there's absolutely no possibility the Gentile will get out of that pit, it's in the desert, nobody's coming, you can walk by and leave him there. And so the Jews are doing the same thing right now. The Gentiles are in the pit, but there's a possibility of them getting out. So you can't just leave them there. You can't just come out and tell them idolatry is bad. It's not the proper time. Only when you think you can get away with it and it won't cause
no,
you a
you can't.
problem.
You've got the First Amendment. American Jews have the protection of the First Amendment. And also, European Jews have, I think, Article 3 or 2 of the European Convention of Human Rights that gives them the right to freedom of belief. So they have it. They just choose not to assert that right.
No, they're
Because
being smart. They're being clever. They're waiting until the Gentiles and they're waiting until the Gentile can't get out of the pit and that nobody will come to save them, and then they're going to leave them in the
yeah,
pit.
but there are all these Muslims who are impatiently saying, adopt Islam already. Your Christo-liberalism has crashed and burned. How can
Okay,
you
yeah,
just
with a new book and a new religion and a new prophet and everything that comes along with all that kind of change, and the Jews are not asking anyone to change it. They're just saying, let's have a moment of silence in school. Who are they more likely to listen to? It a rabbi
they're
who's
just
saying,
gonna
let's
ignore it. They're just gonna, it's like,
then why is it in school? When did the Muslims get a moment of
there's
silence in
always been
school?
a minute's silence for
No, no,
whatever.
no. This was Chabad backed, enforced moment of silence. This was Chabad's doing. Muslims have not done anything to get a moment of silence in
Well, they
school.
did do it very well. Even, okay, you said that Education and Sharing Day, which is the commemoration of the birthday of Rabbi Schneerson, who started this whole ball rolling about Jews teaching Gentiles and the Noahide laws, it was established in 1979, wasn't it?
Well, something like that. Nothing
Yeah,
about
and you
no.
went to school, and when did you leave school?
Hmm.
When did you leave school?
In 2002.
Okay, so you have been through school after Education and Sharing Day was established, and And I've asked you this question before. Did you notice education and
Yeah,
sharing
I
day
know,
in
and
your
this is
school days?
such.
And he said, no, I didn't even notice. And this year it's on the 2nd of April, which is a Sunday. So, schools are just going to walk on by about
Okay,
education and
Claire,
sharing
this is
day.
why
They
you're this.
haven't done
I know,
anything.
but you think like a Gentile that, okay, the
No,
Jews, no, 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 look, the Jews got it started. And okay, there was no Chabad backed moment of science when I was in school, but now there is. It's a generation later. Go generation by generation. Don't just steamroll it out. Don't
yes,
just
you
like,
have to steam. You know what I've been doing for all these years. I've been basically, well, telling Christians that they're idolaters, and they don't even care.
I know. So Chabad's way, I think the Jews have a better plan. Anyway, let's keep reading. I think the Jews have a better plan than you, and that they're going to be more successful because they're taking their time. But I do only have about 50 minutes left, or look, no, I have more than 50 minutes, and there's only 4 pages. But and treating of God, he says, surely God is good in reality and is to be represented. But what can we make of his ultimate good? It is not his good merely as a good thing, as right is for you the right thing. And what can we make of his God when, after talking of the goodness and dignity of God, he goes on to talk of the gods and of how the poets are to be arraigned for not treating them respectfully and that they make them laugh or portray them in undignified occupations and postures? Well, does he say the inquiry we are undertaking is no trivial one, but demands a keen sight? He does not say that it demands the aid of God or a loving heart or hunger after righteousness, but the very question of God is trivial one. For as one says in this book, it is urged neither in evasion it is urged neither evasion nor violence can succeed with the gods. Well, but if they either do not exist or do not concern themselves with the affairs of men, why need we concern ourselves to evade their observation? This graceful skepticism, which strikes the opening note of the book, sets the tone for the entire theme. What is justice? What indeed? Does any man that loves true justice, not the game, ever ask this question? Can anyone truly believe that the subtlest and skillfulest analysis of justice will help one jot in creative love of justice, desire for justice? A vision of perfection of mankind and children being trained for war. Contrast it with this. In that day there shall be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrians shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. In that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt and with Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land, whom the Lord of hosts shall bless, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, mine inheritance. Or with the better known passage, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. And many people shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountains of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and he will walk, and we will walk in his paths. And he shall judge the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn any war anymore. A vision of perfection of mankind with censors and with carefully groomed gods, the limit of imagination. But this, and the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of God as the waters cover the sea. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. And because his world is not God's world, but the world of the self created gods, he must sit down and argue anxiously, What is justice? But he that really loves justice asks no question. He cries instead, Seek good and not evil, that ye may live. And so the Lord, the God of hosts, shall be with you as you have spoken. Hate evil and love the good, and establish judgment in the gate, and let judgment run down as waters and righteousness as mighty streams. And when baffled by the inadequacy of his human standards, your philosopher refers justice to the categoric imperative. He betrays the triviality of the world. What is the categoric imperative? That helpless compromise and confession. What man recognizes it will bow to it. That phrase itself is its own denial, for he that refers mankind to a categoric imperative is himself neither categoric nor imperative, but even the deaf will hear and tremble when the prophet thunders. Thus saith the Lord, there is the categoric imperative. For me, conscious of being Jewish and of the meaning of being Jewish, it is impossible to write of this contrast without bias, as if this book were merely an intellectual exercise. Because I am Jewish, I look with ultimate aversion on the world which finds supreme and ideal expression in Plato's Republic. And though I may repeat this is and though I may repeat that this is no question of right and wrong in these two worlds, yours and ours, I cannot but feel profoundly and vehemently that ours is the way and the life. Yet I would pay what tribute I can to the dreams of one like Plato. I have at least touched your world closely enough to have caught some of the beauty of its freedom. And there is a Jewish legend which tells that when God brought this law, to the children of Israel assembled at the foot of Sinai, after he had offered it to all the other peoples, only to have it rejected, he left them no choice, but said, either you take my law, or I will lift up this mountain and crush you beneath it. I attach no psychological significance to this fable. The practice of interpreting fables psychologically is, as a rule, a dishonest one. But quoted as a handy illustration, we are not free to choose and to reject, to play, to contract, to construct, to refine. We are a dedicated and enslaved people, predestined to an unchangeable relationship. Freedom at large was not and is not a Jewish ideal. Service, love, consecration, these are ideals with us. Freedom means nothing to us. Freedom to do what? And that kind of goes with your thing, right, Claire, that the Gentiles are just like, they don't have rules, they're allowed to do whatever they want. And like you said, his thing about his justice, that the fact that they even contemplate justice means there's something wrong, because the Jew knows what justice is, because, he has a certain set of rules, right and wrong. So he doesn't even sit and philosophize about what is right and wrong. He just has his rules, and that's it.
Well, it's a principle of the thing, but this is a phrase that I remember my mother talking about, and people used to say it's a principle of the thing, when somebody accuses them, oh, why are you doing this, so because it makes no sense, or it creates no profit for the person doing it, and the person would say it's a principle of the thing. And once upon a time Gentiles also had this idea, but I guess that they've forgotten all about it now. um
Well, I
because
think the Gentiles were always much more philosophical about it. I think the Gentiles were the type of people that sat and thought to themselves, well, what is justice? And I think their meaning of justice changes. And I think that's obvious. Yes, it's ready? Okay. I think that no, it's fine. I don't need any. I think that it's obvious. I think that it's obvious that they did change over time. I think that's what they're all about. And I think that's what the Jews complain about.
Well, yeah, I mean that is the thing. I mean, once upon a time, I'm not saying that Christians never had any principles. I'm sure a lot of them did, and it troubled them, and they thought about it and stuff. But the point is that Christianity has to be so firmly dealt with. It's like, just as long as you don't say you doubt the divinity of Jesus, you're allowed to exist and prosper and all that kind of thing. But the moment you question it, then all hell breaks loose, and you get burnt at the stake. So obviously it does cause a lot of neurosis. And then when the Victorians basically said in 1813 that people, it's now legal to deny the Trinity, everybody just went crazy, and then I guess the moment they did it, they stopped believing. And that was kind of why Nietzsche was going on, oh, God is dead and we have killed him. What are we going to do? Oh, but we can't become Muslim. Because that was kind of what Nietzsche actually read the Quran, but I guess he looked at the Muslims and thought, well, we can't become like those people who are so primitive, because we Germans are so much more civilized than these Arabs in Arabia. But what did he know, eh?
One
Because I mean,
second.
Nietzsche was basically an existentialist. He was kind of saying there is no God. We have to work out what we have to do for the best. I mean, if you understand Western philosophy through that, so you will understand that Western philosophy has been about plugging this God-sized hole in the mind of Christian Europeans once once the American Republic was established. Because okay, once the American Republic was established, it was like for the old world, the Europeans. I bet they were thinking we'd like that. We'd like what the Americans have, kicking out King George and doing their own thing, and and then they had the French Revolution, and there were the French Revolutionary Wars and Napoleonic Wars, and it caused great disruption throughout Europe. So I guess the Europeans were pretty scared, but they still weren't scared enough to think, oh, maybe we need to do something about our crap religion that has failed over the centuries. Maybe we'll just keep giving it another go. And they carried on, and then there was the Russian Revolution in 1917, and they still didn't learn their lesson. And then there was World War One and World War Two, and it's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe the penny takes World War Three to drop.
Ugh. Wesley Curry is in the chat, and he's the only one chatting, and everything's about
He's just
Jesus, and
posting his usual religious rubbish, right?
yeah, yeah, it's all about Jesus and religion. Judas Fly stopped in. I don't know where he is now. Um, um, okay, let's finish because we only have one page left, and this was a short chapter, and it was good because I have to do some dusting with you while I'm on the phone today, so we'll just be chatting and I won't be reading anymore. But let's finish this page. Yet in glimpse, I understand the charm of your life and sometimes lose myself in the fascination of your Plato's dream. Such a world as he foreshadows, a world of sunlight, exercise, singing, fantasy, a world of graceful and elastic bodies, of keen flashing minds, of clash and effort, wars and heroes and monuments, a life wheeling and dashing in splendid formation, rejoicing under free and lovely skies, a life without brooding and gloom, without the intolerable burden of this unrelaxing imminence. Man and man's effort, man's love and agonies are ends in themselves, to be exploited for themselves. The coming and going of men and nations and gods are without ultimate significance, a dance of atoms, a passing ecstasy without thought of the sinister beyond. Beautiful, but not for us. While this dance goes on, while nations and gods enter the game and leave it, we continue through all time, an apparition, almost a dreaded reminder of infinity. Your dreams of perfection are only of a piece which you present life. The transient become permanent. The skies will be blue forever. Your dance will never end. Your bodies will always be strong, your wits keen, your battles glorious, your game will reach its limits of enjoyment. But for us, this is not an apotheosis, this is not a vision. For us, the end is ecstatic unity, the identification of man with God. Your ideal is eternal youth, ours lifts towards an unchanging climax of adult perfection. You would like to play with your gods forever. We will return to God to the universe. Yours is a sunlit afternoon with the combatants swaying forever in joyous struggle. Ours is a whole world with the Spirit of God poured through all things. Your ideal is Plato's Republic, ours is God's kingdom. All right, well, that little bit, yeah, okay, yeah, I do see, the Gentiles, especially, the more anti-Semitic ones, they want this like jockey, this culture of young jocks and war and sporting and, youthful vigor and a keen wit and, they're all into the physical and, not, and the psychic and, it's not supposed, no, they don't want these serious monastic lives, right? And they don't want to be humble, they don't want to feel humble, you know what I mean? Like in paganism, like being a god is something to attain, like to reach, rather than to even submit to, you know what I mean? And in paganism, or at least in European paganism, you didn't have to necessarily even submit to the gods. I mean, sometimes the gods even needed your help and you could become a god, so there's a big difference. Claire? She must have left, or did I get kicked out of the room?
Oh, sorry, I was talking while muted. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Um, I've forgotten what the question was now. Sorry.
Well, no, it was. I was just describing. I was just describing the difference between, the Gentile, the Gentiles utopia versus the Jews' utopia. I mean, what's the Jewish utopia? Is every Jew in Israel under the 613 commands, and every Gentile outside the land of Israel under the Noahide laws. That's not like, and no war. That's not the Gentile who wants young, youthful, beautiful bodies that are hardened by war and sport and art and literature of high renowned and all this other kind of stuff and that's not. What's their utopia? It's a horrible, living under horrible 613 commands, and Israel and everyone else outside of Israel under the Noahide laws. That sounds horrible.
Well, it's as boring as the Christian heaven, isn't it? Spending all eternity on the right hand of God, singing His praises.
No, but that's also Gentile. That the Jewish utopia is living under these harsh laws, and the Christian Gentile utopia is, or heaven, if you will, is being in the spiritual land, playing a harp, singing to God. Where the Jews' utopia is actually living here on earth, not in heaven, and acting and living like you're in ancient Israel. I mean, that's what they're.
But
That's
the
what.
thing is that there isn't it a question about these Jews in Samuel, when basically the Jews were they arrived in the promised land and settled themselves down, and what the administration of justice would be judges going on a circuit, it seemed, to they go up and down the country to dispense justice, and there were no kings. And the next, because that there was a book that there's a book of Judges in the Old Testament, right? And then there's a book of Kings. And I think the story is that these Jews said, well, hey, how come we don't have a king? I mean, it's really cool, these Gentiles having a king. We want one too. And God was kind of saying, are you sure you want to be like them? And it seems like they said, yeah, we want a king.
Which was a bad idea, yeah.
The king might just sort of, conscript you all and fight his wars and tax you silly, and they still said we want one. And part of Jewish history is that they've only had 3 kings, right? And the best one was King Solomon, and after that they were really bad kings. After the death of Solomon, his son split the kingdom into 2, and they just got
and
worse
Solomon
and worse
became pagan. Solomon went pagan in the end, so.
Well, he broke I would say he broke the 4 wives max rule of Islam. But okay, he's not Muslim, but I think a lot of Jewish thought has gone into Solomon, probably didn't train his son very well about the skills of kingship. Maybe he spent too much time in his harem, and the same thing happened to the Ottoman emperor. He had a harem, and well, maybe he spent too much time there instead of governing the country properly. Same thing with the emperor of China.
What is that for? What is that, their holding bag for later? Why did you seal them in that? You just need to be so techy and special. Anyway, so okay, I don't think no, it's not that he took on too many wives, it's that he took on pagan wives. You know what I mean? He took on idolatrous wives who led him astray. The Bible says that it was his wives who led him into paganism. So it wasn't just sexual distraction, it was spiritual corruption. And I always use Solomon as a great example. Okay, he was so wise, he became a pagan. You know what I mean? Like, he was just too wise too wise for the Israeli religion, and he just didn't want it because he was probably a clever, smart, intelligent, creative Gentile. You know what I mean? That's probably just what he was. And, and yeah, maybe he liked having sex like a Gentile. I forget the rabbi, I got to find that article, but there was this really famous Chabad rabbi who came out and said, well, the Gentiles can't accomplish anything because all they do is sit around and think about sex with animals all day. You know what I mean? He said. That's what he said.
Which one?
I'll find it. Oh, you could find it now. Do you know you would love go to look up a website called Failed Messiah. I think it's failedmessiah.typepad.com, but I'm not sure. If you go to Failed Messiah, there's this ex-Jew. He's an ex-Jew. He's an ex-Orthodox Jew. He's an ex-Chabad Jew, I think. And he does nothing but document all the crimes of Chabad. He like every little negative thing they've ever said about anybody. He documents it, and it all started. He left it because of Chabad's did something dismissive of black Jews in Ethiopia, and he felt as though they were being racist. So he left, and now he's dedicated his whole life to exposing racist, anti-Gentile Chabad. Have you found it, Failed Messiah?
Not yet.
Oh,
It sounds fun. I'll have a look.
yeah.
I know Chabad kind of, after Schneerson died, it broke up in division. Failed Messiah, Chabad Messianism.
Is it is it Failed Messiah.typepad or something like that?
Yeah. I'm getting there. But yes, I mean, it just broke up and had different leaders and couldn't get on with each other, and then are accused by other Jews of being of idolatrously worshipping Rabbi Schneerson, because apparently they didn't say he died. They said he might be coming back. Something about his epitaph, implying that he might be resurrected.
Yeah, I've seen the
other Jews kind of,
I've seen videos.
We've got a holy rabbi now, have we?
I have seen video of Chabad children in Chabad schools pretending that they see Rabbi Schneerson in front of them and talking to him. Like the teacher was like, Rabbi Schneerson's in front of you right now. Talk to him, and they were practicing necromancy, which is the problem with this Kabbalah, in which this is precisely why Gentiles shouldn't read Kabbalah, because that there are even devout Orthodox Jews who are very religious that think the Kabbalah is paganism.
I suppose it could be used for paganism because, it's vague. I mean, the whole point of spirituality is that it has to be vague and inclusive. Well, Hanukkah is like, it's black or white, forget your gray shit, and this is what is required to make it work, so people know which side of the law they're on. I mean, all this sort of spiritual stuff can be dangerous because it's just vague, and people will just, have their own interpretation of it, and you can't really argue about, with them about it because the word's already vague. So vague, you can't really argue about it.
Well, yeah, and that's why I don't, that's why, Gentiles are not forbidden from reading Kabbalah, but I don't think they should read Kabbalah at all.
Yeah, because it's not that helpful because they don't even get the rules. They don't even understand the rules, so they can't, be spiritual with it. Because, okay, how I define spirituality is the desire for justice and wanting to feel, good and safe, and this would be, the three features of spirituality. Either you enjoy these things or you desire these things, and you can't feel safe if you don't know what the rules are. So it's sort of like, you know, in a 70 mile per hour, you know, highway, you know, if you're driving below it, then you know you're not going to get a ticket, and you enjoy this, you know, the safeness that you feel that, you know, you probably that you're not going to get a ticket. But if you go, you know, above 70, you know, and you go 90, you know, you will kind of suffer emotional disturbance and guilt, because you think you're probably going to get caught. The cops are going to notice you. You know, some camera is going to take a picture of you and send you a ticket. You know, in a few weeks' time, that sort of thing. So we're talking about spiritual ease, which, you know, and which we sort of feel if we think, well, we're living in a good society where the government can be trusted and we haven't done anything wrong, we haven't killed anybody, raped anybody, cheated anyone, and we don't expect the cops to be calling, that sort of thing. But if we don't even know what the rules are, you know, why would we even think of feeling guilty or feeling safe? You know, we'll just be doing things in you know, in a way that we imagine, you know, animals to have to do. I mean, I guess animals would feel safe if there's no predator outside, you know, waiting to eat them while they, you know, need to go out and hunt for food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the Gentiles do best without spirituality, because if you give them spirituality, they're going to turn it into idolatry, and it's going to become a problem, and
But
it's
there are
good.
ways of protecting these people. I mean, I've been saying for so long to these rabbis you know, who complaining about these Christian missionaries going to Israel and converting all these Jews who obviously don't know much about that Judaism, which is why it's so easy for them to convert. Um, and you know, I've said, look, if you think Jesus is alive, you think he's immortal. If you think he's immortal, you think he's divine. If you think he's divine, you're guilty of idolatry. And that's it. And once you have this sort of simple chain of reasoning in your head, you will know not to be fooled by any Christian missionary talking about Jesus in the present tense. You know, such as Jesus lives, Jesus loves you, Jesus will be coming back. Jesus is coming back. You see, I mean,
I
you
know, but
know,
I do want to correct you. Just even if you believe that Jesus is still alive, doesn't mean that you're practicing idolatry, because Jehovah's Witnesses believe he's alive, but they just don't believe he's God. So, I mean, if Christians drop the Trinity, they would be close. That's going to be how, look, Jews are not going to come in and say, oh, you have the Trinity in your idolatry. First, they're going to say, oh, the Trinity is fine. And then they're going to tell them eventually, once they've got them under their spell, they're going to tell them, well, you know, you can keep Jesus. Jesus is fine. Jesus is a good rabbi, but you just can't believe he's God. But you can keep Jesus, and then eventually you won't be able to keep Jesus. And you know, it's just like every generation you take something out. You take out something that's not allowed, and then you just keep going. And so, you know, that's how it's going to be, and that's why nobody's going to really revolt, because and they'll do it very cleverly, like they did with the Schofield Bible, where they basically made everyone pro-Semitic or pro-Jewish by changing the interpretation and stuff like that. Actually, they have this new Bible out called the Israel Bible. I don't think it has the New Testament. Israel 365 put it out, which is a Noahidist organization, and they do talk about the Noahide laws in the Bible. But that's that's how they're going to do it slowly. They're getting this Israel Bible out, right? So the Israel Bible probably is going to set everything up. These Christians are really getting into this Israel Bible. So it's going to set them up to be Noahides. They don't notice it yet. It's very subtle. The Noahidization process in getting these Christians on the Israel Bible is not, I mean, it does discuss the Noahide laws, but it's not going to just come out and be like, the Trinity's idolatry. You know what I mean? They're going to do it
I'll be
slowly.
doing that. I'll be doing that. So
You know what they're going to do? I know what they're going to do. They're going to take the Old Testament. There's a Christian version of the Old Testament, and then there's a Jewish version of the Old Testament. And they're going to do things like correct the Christians where they use the word Lord with a capital L, meaning God, instead of a lowercase l, meaning a human Lord. You know what I mean? Which Michael Dowling says that's how they they tricked everybody into thinking Jesus is God by capitalizing Lord all over the place, and when that's not what it really meant, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, because they just use words in a special way. It's like, if I get you to say that and you don't think what you said means what I think it means, but I still got you because I got you to repeat the words and that kind of thing. I mean, getting Trinitarians to repeat the Nicene Creed and talking about the Trinity. I'm afraid I have to inform you, Vincent, that worshipping anything that isn't God is idolatry. And you're saying Jesus is an angel because that is what Jehovah's Witnesses believe. But an angel is a creation of God, and if you confuse God and his creation and worship the wrong one, you are guilty of idolatry.
I know, but if you don't
You
worship the
can't get
angel,
out of it by saying
no,
Jesus
no,
is
if
an
you don't
angel,
worship, they don't
because
worship Jesus. There is no worship of Jesus. There's no worship of Jesus in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Nobody worships him. They pray through him as a mediary, like as a messenger, but not like he's not God Almighty. He's God's angel son, who will rule in God's place in paradise on earth. Jesus will be the king of the earth, but he's still not God, and he won't be worshipped as a god. He'll simply be he'll be a ruler, but he's not God.
well, Trinitarians also say the same thing. It's like, they say things like, oh, we don't really believe Jesus is God. We just pray through him and blah, blah. But, you look up the Trinity. Okay, we have to read the Athanasian Creed. And then you will get, what it is that they're supposed to believe in. And most of them haven't even heard of it. Maybe even only those who train for the priesthood know about it, and they don't roll it out for ordinary Christians because, well, they would just reject the nonsense in it. But this is what I'm trying to say about Christianity. It's so obviously ridiculous that once you demonstrate the evidence, there is no getting away from the awful truth that basically Europeans have been tricked in a really bad Big Brother way about their religion. I mean, Big Brother had nothing on, well, what the Trinitarians were supposed to believe, or what the Catholic Church did to people, and executing them for saying the wrong word and stuff. I mean, that was really very, very, very totalitarian. But then obviously, all these things about PTSD, and you forget terrible things that have happened to you because you want to block it out of your mind. I think it can happen to a whole civilization, and this, it seems, is what has happened to Westerners. It's like, on the one hand, they kind of know about Christians being burned at the stake, but on the other hand, they sort of run to Christianity when they're scared of Muslims, and they haven't resolved it within their minds. And then they think about it, and then they decide to hate Christians or Christianity, and they double down on their secular political ideologies that haven't really worked. I mean, they've tried all the wrong ways. They've tried Nazism, they've tried fascism and liberalism and communism, and I think they're run out of options. But they still want to kind of wander around because they don't want to accept Islam.
Well, back to Rabbi Watton and taking on the virtues of the Jews, and back to the person whom this stream is named after, Jonas Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jonas Hansen. Claire, I don't think you've yet taken on the virtues of the Jews.
Because I'm not promoting the same thing you are. But then it's
No,
only
but I
because
also think
I
that
think
you've
my
not taken
ideas
on the
are.
same virtues of the Jews in that you're looking for the Gentile approach of kind of fast and hard. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just kind of like, yeah, fast and hard. Like, let's get it done
I
right.
want it to happen in my lifetime, obviously. Because
Yes.
if secular Quranism works, I want to be around to acknowledge its success. I mean, what's
Well,
the
but
point
I know, but
otherwise?
I think
And I
that,
want you to join me, Vincent. Why won't you join me?
but it's just that, like
It's
that.
because it's not your idea. That's why you won't join
No,
me.
that's not why, because I
You
don't even
just
agree.
love your own idea and you worship it and you don't want to worship my idea. But it's
No,
for
but
your own
no,
good.
the ideas that I really worship are, scientific, rational social liberalism. That's what I really worship. I don't worship Noahidism, and I wouldn't worship secular Quranism because it's the opposite of a lot of what I believe in. I mean, it's just that secular Quranism is not the most useful psyop for me. It doesn't fit my vision. It doesn't work. It's not manipulatable enough for me. What am I going to do with that? There's only so much I can do with that to fuck up society. Like,
Why do you want to fuck up society? Why do
well,
you
because
just want to
I
fix
want
it?
the opposite. I want the war to come. I want the antithesis to rise. I want the antithesis to win. I don't want to dampen the war. I don't want to make it less less vicious, because secular Quranism is kind of like weak, watered down Abrahamism. And so, the people who do fight it, they're not going to get that red hot, or they're not going to think that deeply about it because it's not that offensive. It's just a little bit offensive, and maybe it's something you could tolerate, and maybe the gays and all the liberals and the leftists won't really revolt that hard because it's a little oppressive, but not that oppressive, and it just
Yeah, I'm
doesn't work
selling
for.
it to the government. I don't really care about the plebs. Obviously, it can only be done through the government. So, I think I should be, helpful as a consultant and say, this is how you do it. This is how you change their minds. This is, how to make it fun for them. And, well, I want you to join me in this project. And it would help if, yeah. I mean, you enjoy theology. We could have a radio show, and if you said you supported secular Quranism, people would notice. I mean, that is really the thing. Secular Quranism, as far as the being hated by our haters, secular Quranism is more powerful as an idea than your no-heightism because. As you were saying, nobody takes it seriously, but they kind of take Islam seriously because they hate it so much, and therefore it's just more looming in their consciousness than no-heightism.
Okay, yeah, well, that also works to my advantage is that people are really against Islam and people are really not against Noahidism. So when the subject of Noahidism does start to come out, it's not knee jerk, absolutely no. It's, what is this? I've never heard of this before. Let me find out. And then, the rabbis make it sound soft and not so bad. And, they make it sound like secular Quranism, like it's going to be this liberal, any religion is okay and everything's okay, and even if you're gay it's okay, and all this stuff. And they're not gonna be, yeah, people are scared of Islam. People are going to be more receptive to Noahidism in the way that it's going to be presented, and it doesn't have a history. It's never murdered anyone, it's never caused a war, it's never attacked anyone, it's never led off a terrorist attack, it's never done anything like that. It just seems like, a lot more civilized of a way of going.
Well, okay. What I'm doing is basically telling the Jews that that they got this really good idea and they haven't been using it correctly. It's sort of like I don't know, using your hat as a bucket or something, misapplying the purpose for which it was used. So the Noahide laws are not for Jews to push onto Gentiles. It's for Jews to work out whether Gentile things are righteous. whether Gentile individuals or Gentile nations or Gentile religions.
No,
And
the Jews are put here to teach the Noahide laws to the
yeah, they haven't been
Gentiles.
doing it.
Well,
And I'm
they're doing
saying
it now. They're doing it now
they're
in the
not doing
proper
it
time.
properly.
No, they're doing it at the proper time and the proper way in the proper place. They're not doing it when Claire Call wants them to do it and how they're doing it.
They
They're
should have
doing
done
it.
it a long time ago.
Well, no, that wasn't the Messianic age then. We weren't entering the Messianic revelation. We're entering Messianic revelation now. That's why it's happening now. It's happening on God's terms, not your terms.
Well, we know why the Jews won't do it, because they're just embarrassed.
They are doing it. They are doing it.
They're not saying that Christianity is idolatry.
Well, Alan Cecil is saying it is.
Well, Alan Cecil is not exactly active on social media. He doesn't.
Okay, well, he's at least a thought leader in the Noahide movement, and plenty of Noahides call I've not met one Noahide who's pro-Christian. I've never met a Noahide who is okay with Christianity, who doesn't say Christianity is idolatry. I've never met one. They're all anti-Christians.
Okay, but they are not. What's the word? Intellectually respectable.
Well, look. The Talmud says a Noahide who is learned in his own law is as good as a high priest. A Noahide can actually prophesy. Okay, and a Noahide who is learned is as good as any Jew. So yes, a Noahide who has learned the thoroughness of the law is just as good as a rabbi, and his word is just as sealing as a rabbi. So yes, they do have intellectual, especially when the rabbis especially when the rabbis say, yes, we approve of this, like they did with Alan Cecil. You know, when you have a Noahide who has rabbi backing, yes, then they do become
him.
his rabbis that taught him in the yeshiva. He names them in his book.
All right, but I bet they're dead or something. You know, when did it go to yeshiva?
Okay, but wait, I don't know. I haven't gone around the whole world and asked every rabbi if they've read Alan Cecil and if they approve him. But we know that Judas Fly and Joshua Shalit do, and I'm sure there's plenty of other Orthodox
not
Jews.
Jews, are they? And they're not.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's plenty of Orthodox Jews that would read Alan Cecil and would say, "Yes, I approve of this message."
Well, what about those Chabad rabbis you were talking about? Michael Schulman, you introduced him to me.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to email him because he knows who I am now and he won't talk to me. But if you email him Secular by Design in the PDF and say, "Could you take a look and tell me what you think?" Let's see what he says.
Okay, I'll do that. But
I'll go ahead.
Okay. These days he doesn't reply to every single email I send him. But okay.
Okay, and the other thing is I'm just going and I'm spreading Secular by Design, and I'm going to make it a popular book, and so eventually the rabbis are going to have to talk on it because I think I do want revenge on the rabbis for being so lackadaisical and being so weak, and they should be reading Alan Cecil.
Let them get your revenge sooner.
Let them learn from the Noahides. My revenge on the rabbis is that people are going to start going to the Noahides for learning and not to them.
Arguably.
No, you're not a Noahide. You don't believe you believe in freedom of religion. You believe in freedom of speech. You're not a Noahide.
Well, if Islam is a Noahide religion, and
it's not. It's not.
Well, I mean, there's nothing else then.
Yes, there's pure Noahidism.
Well, nobody accepts its status
yet. I know, because it's not. I know, Claire. Claire, you are a Gentile incapable of seeing how things could unfold. It's just you cannot put A and B together. You cannot put A and B together. That the Noahide movement is growing, and so that eventually one day it would have some status. It's
I suppose if I met a respectable Noahide,
like Alan Cecil.
Well, I mean, he won't talk to me. I mean, there's always something a bit off about them, a bit weird, a bit shifty about them. So, are you saying James is the idol smasher? Is a Noahide? Is that what he said he was officially?
I'm a little bit confused. What's his name told me he became an atheist, but according to Alan Cecil, you can be an atheist and a Noahide at the same time. Judas Fly said he became an atheist, but I heard him talking. He doesn't sound like an atheist, and he talks about the Noahide laws, and he says he teaches Noahide law. So unless he just has some fascination with it now, I know he was. I, I don't know. Maybe he's not, but he's just still fascinated with it, or I don't know.
What did you just say? That Alan Cecil has now become an atheist?
No, that. I don't know if it's true, but Judas Fly told me that James the Idol Smasher became an atheist. But even if he's an atheist, doesn't mean he's not a Noahide anymore.
I, I'm sure any rabbi would say you can't be a Noahide if you are an atheist.
Not Nachmanides. Nachmanides said you don't have to believe in God.
Well, that's highly irregular.
No, Nachmanides is pretty standard.
Okay, well, I guess I need rabbinical confirmation of this, and what you claim is highly irregular.
This is what Alan Cecil claimed, and he showed all his documentation, and he went to yeshiva. He graduated from yeshiva, Claire. He's not just some researcher. He actually studied under rabbis.
Yeah, but that, I don't know how long ago that was. Or...
Well, he's still alive, so it couldn't have been, more than 30 years or something like that. And there's rabbis that are much older than him, and you would still accept their authority, even though they got their degree before him.
I mean, really, the only it's rabbinical authority that is ultimately at issue.
No. A Noahide who
about
studied
Judaism.
a Noahide who studies his laws is as good as a high priest. That's what the Talmud says. A Noahide who studies his own laws is as good as a high priest. So a Noahide who has studied and a Noahide judge is just as authoritative as any rabbi. You don't need to go to a rabbi. Okay? You can go straight to the Noahide source.
Hello?
Yeah, so you could go straight to the Noahide source. He's as good as a high priest. And Alan Cecil is as good as a rabbi. He's as good as a high.
I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I just, nobody will believe you because nobody is going to think that a Noahide is as authoritative as a rabbi with regard to matters of Jewish doctrine.
Not when it comes to Noahide. Then you don't believe in what the Talmud says, that a Noahide who is studied in his own laws is as good as a high priest. You reject Judaism, and so because you reject Judaism, you're never going to understand. But if you accept Judaism, and then you will accept that a Noahide is as good as a high priest. That's it. That's what Judaism says. It's not about your opinion. It's about what the Talmud says.
Yeah, but anybody will assume that a rabbi would know more.
No. Not if they listen to rabbis, because a rabbi would say, "Oh no, a learned Gentile in the Noahide laws is just as good as a high priest. Go ask one of them."
Well, I'm sure that is very controversial amongst rabbis, and you're not going to get any rabbi prepared to say that Noahides can be atheists, as you seem to be saying.
Well, why does Alan Cecil have so much support if it's impossible?
Does he have so much support?
Yeah, from both rabbis and Noahides. Why do both rabbis and Noahides
can I have
promote?
a list of rabbis who support Alan
Well, read it.
Cecil?
Open Secular by Design, the PDF, and you can see the two rabbis who were his teachers, or three rabbis, or whatever their names were, who were his advisors.
I bet they're dead now.
Okay, and Judas Fly supports it, and Joshua Shalit supports it,
Yeah, well,
and other rabbis support it, and Noahides support it.
You can't name a single rabbi who's still alive that supports Alan Cecil's stuff.
Okay, well, I would have to go. Well, first of all, we'd have to get them to all read the book first, and then, or I don't know if they have or if they haven't. And no, Claire, I'm not going to go emailing every rabbi and saying, "Have you read Alan Cecil? Do you agree with him?" Like, it's just, I know that what he's written comes from a legitimate yeshiva with legitimate rabbinical sources. Okay, it comes from legitimate Judaism. It's not some crank. It's legitimate Judaism.
Okay, I'll email Rabbi Michael Schulman,
Okay.
and ask him if he's heard of Alan Cecil and what he
Send
thinks
him the
of secular
PDF.
by design.
Send
Yeah.
him the PDF of Secular by Design and see if he'll read it or if he has read it and what his opinion is on it.
Hmm. Okay.
But and yeah, no, I'm putting a lot of hope on Alan Cecil being the guide, the Noahide guide for the future, and for yeah, I think that he's the thought leader of the Noahide future. I do think that he's on the fringes a little bit. He is. I
Hmm.
won't deny that a little bit, but he's not so fringy that no one's ever heard of him, and he's not so fringy that he has no supporters, and he's not. No, I've never met a Noahide antagonistic towards him. That oh no, that's not true. I have. He does get into fights with rabbis and stuff. But wait, no. They're not antagonistic towards him because of what his doctrine is. They're antagonistic towards him because he wants Noahides. He says the rabbis are all fucked up and have no right to be running anything, and the Noahides should be in control. And the rabbis don't want to lose control, and so he gets into fights with the rabbis. But he's the one who's right because Noahides are supposed to implement the Noahide laws whether rabbis are teaching them or not. As a Gentile, it is your duty to learn the Noahide laws, whether there's a rabbi there or not, and to enforce them.
Hmm.
Which, it's, which is a little bit shitty. I mean, okay, they're in the Talmud. I mean, but you're not supposed to read parts of the Talmud. You're only supposed to read certain parts of the Talmud. It would be kind of hard to find these Noahide laws without any Jewish. Well, I guess the Jews just, as long as the Jews write one book for the Gentiles about the Noahide laws and give it to them, then, I mean, after.
Still can't be trusted. I mentioned Rabbi Sachs again to you. He wrote a book called Morality. And I was so excited thinking he's going to mention the Noahide laws. What's he going to say about Christianity? And he didn't mention the Noahide laws at all. And he was the chief rabbi of the British Commonwealth.
Yeah, well, because he's a coward
That's
and
how
because.
intellectually dishonest they are. How can you trust people like that?
Well, but not all rabbis are like him, and he's a fading. That his type are going to fade as things progress. The Noahide laws are going to take precedence because they are real Judaism. Because you can't argue with that. Because yes, Jews are supposed to be doing that. So when a Jew comes out and writes a book about the Noahide laws, he's going to say, "Well, I'm doing the right thing. You're doing the wrong thing. So step aside. You're not a real Jew."
Well, Jewish identity is very much at issue at the moment. So, and okay, maybe, they don't know whether they're Jew or Gentile, whether they're coming or going, just like Western Gentiles who don't know if they're fit male or female. And I guess there's no point asking them anything. And the only thing you can do is refer to scripture and make sense of it. I mean, there's no point confusing yourself with this rabbi says this, but the other rabbi says that. You have to go to primary sources of Judaism, and this means scripture. It means the written and oral Torah. And then they can't give you the runaround if you show them that where they get all their silly ideas from.
Yeah, well, the
And the thing
future.
is, they already know that they have a problem, their two Jews, three opinions problem, which the Muslims also suffer from. And it's only
Okay.
the Pope that kind of at least, says, well, I'm the final authority.
Look, the future of the Noahide movement is with the Noahides, not the rabbis, because the Noahides are allowed to teach themselves. They're allowed to set up their own courts. Actually, they're supposed to set up their own courts. They don't need the rabbis as long as all the Noahide materials out there. No, there's nothing that is about the Noahide laws that is not available to the Gentiles somewhere. It's all available somewhere, and a Gentile can
In the
become more.
Quran.
No, the Gentile could become more learned in the Noahide laws than any rabbi. And the future, and we're going to sit there and we're going to say, well, you know what? It's our responsibility to set this up. You don't want to fulfill your duty as a Jew. That's on you. We're going to fulfill our duty. We're going to do what God told us to do, and we're going to take over the Noahide movement, which is what we're really supposed to do. And that is why Alan Cecil is the future, because with the Noahides are red hot. The Noahides hate Christianity, hate idolatry, talk about decapitations, everything like that. It's the Jews who are scared, so it's time. Alan Cecil says, step aside.
Well, he doesn't have the authority, I'm afraid.
Yes, he does, as a learned Gentile who went.
The fact is, no Gentile is going to respect him.
Noahites respect him, and Jews do.
No, you know it's a lie.
No, it's not a lie. Excuse me. How did he graduate from yeshiva if he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about?
Some people graduate from yeshiva.
How many Gentiles do you know that graduated from yeshiva?
Okay, so he graduated, but it's like, it doesn't mean that he knows more than rabbis. And if rabbis refuse to support him, he's dead in the water.
But he has supportive rabbis, and no, Noahides are willing to listen to each other, and they know the rabbis are being weak, so they like to listen to each other. They know the rabbis are all watery and not even doing what they're really supposed to be doing, and don't have respect for them. They have more respect for Alan Cecil than they do for liberal rabbis.
Well, reform rabbis are completely useless, but I think if you won't be able to find a consensus of rabbinical opinion about Cecil's proposals, and you know it. They're not going to say yes or no.
No. But I can find legitimate rabbis who do endorse it, because what he wrote out there is not some new idea. Okay, he didn't write anything that was like a new idea. He took Jewish sources, he shows his sources, he shows where it all comes from. It's all legitimate interpretation. It might not be everyone's interpretation, but it is legitimate interpretation.
It doesn't matter, because they'll just say yes and no, right? I mean, you know what they're going to do. They'll say yes and no, and, good luck with your idea, because nobody's going to do it properly. And it's a work of several generations. I mean, like you yourself have admitted. Why don't we just?
Yes, it's the work of several.
They will. Okay, secular Quranism is clarity and simplicity, and Muslims are not going to say, "Oh, this book that Claire is using, it doesn't exist." They're going to say, "Yes, it's our book. We just don't agree with her interpretation." Okay, that's the worst they can say. And I'll say to them, well, what makes you think your interpretation is so much better than mine? Look at how you are. The complete basket cases, always complaining about Western imperialism and being poor and stupid and peasants and, complaining about oppression. So I don't think they interpreted the book correctly. So why should I accept that my interpretation is automatically inferior just because I'm not Muslim? I'm legally trained. I can talk to lawyers using legal concepts that these peasants won't be able to understand because they're not trained lawyers. You should just join me instead of arguing with me.
No, but I would only join you if I actually wanted Abrahamic values.
Wouldn't that be preferable? Success in your lifetime?
No. I do not. I don't want to support anything that is going to help Abrahamism. Okay, Noahidism is a good way to fight Abrahamism because it brings out the worst of it and the ugliest in it, and it will disgust people and they'll turn on it totally. You know what I mean? If you bring in a liberal Abrahamism, then people are not going to get sick of it. They're just it's going to fester there, and just it's like it's a slow kill. Okay, like shoot me in the head. Don't poison me over a period of a year. Okay, like secular Quranism is a slow, long death that you don't notice until you're too weak to actually do anything about it. And then you still have to sit there and slowly be poisoned for another few months before you would finally pass. I don't want that. I want someone to come out with a gun so everyone realizes what's going on and fights
Secular
against.
Quranism is that gun. It's gunning for the American
No,
Republic. It's gunning
secular
for the Israelis
secular
in
Quranism
a
is a
legal
little
and peaceful way, of course.
secular Quranism is the wife who puts a little poison in her husband's coffee cup every morning, so it takes a year for him to die. He doesn't know what's going on. He goes to the doctors, they can't figure it out. She does it every morning, and every day he gets a little bit sicker and a little bit sicker and a little bit sicker and doesn't understand what's going on until he's dead. That's what secular Quranism
Okay,
is.
and the thing that I am poisoning is Christianity and idolatry and blasphemy.
Well, yeah,
Well,
but
it
this
is. Well, nobody's going to say, "Ooh, Claire's being so nice to these Christians." She never accuses them of worshipping an executed blasphemer. No, they can't say that. I'm known for it. So it's these rabbis who are saying, no, please don't say this sort of thing. We don't want to get into trouble and offend these Christians. And the Muslims say more or less the same thing. And we're not supposed to be mean to them. It's all on Twitter.
Well, the Muslims are being cowards too then, and I don't see how they're much
Yes.
well, I don't see how they're much better, how much more authority they have than Jews if they won't even tell Christians they're idolaters. So what authority do they have?
I'm saying I have more authority than these Jews and these Muslims, and they should be grateful that I'm doing for them what they fear to do. Like rank the 4 Gentile religions and admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son and promote Sharia. I'm doing all those things that they're too afraid to do, and I'm only an agnostic and a female. So I think I rank higher than they, and they should accept my authority. And and if they accept my authority, why shouldn't you, Vincent?
Well, because I'm not going to accept the authority of
Together do something.
any Abrahamic.
No, it'd be fun.
Okay,
It'd be fun. No.
it's like
Okay,
this is what it's like.
Here's a narrative. We're not even Muslim. We're not even Jews. We understand their system, and we know what they're supposed to do, and we're doing it for them. But they're too scared to do it. And you're gay, and I'm female, and neither of us are Jews or Muslims, and we're doing it for them. But they're still too scared to do it, or too
Okay,
stupid to see it. And
Claire,
that is our unique selling point. That is our USP. So come and join me instead of faffing around in your revolving door.
by revolving door, what are you
You
talking
are in
about?
a revolving door of yes to no about promoting no hydism for good or evil reasons, and you don't have a consistent narrative.
Yes, I do have a
That's
consistent
why
narrative.
Jonas won't understand you. That's why he's calling you mad. It's like,
No,
well, why?
Jonas is too stupid. Jonas is too stupid to be an accelerationist.
Well, he probably doesn't even know what it means.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't even understand the concept. He doesn't understand how it works. He doesn't understand why it works. He's not subtle enough for anything like that, okay? He doesn't have subtlety. He doesn't have nuance. He doesn't have creativity. He doesn't have any kind of genius to him. So, he couldn't even conceive of accelerationism, let alone understand it. So, it's who cares but he's a typical Gentile homosexual, and that he is so shallow. He is so shallow that he believes if he's never heard of the Noahide laws, that means that they're totally irrelevant to reality. And he is so shallow that he admits he knows absolutely nothing about them, but he knows if anybody does talk about them incessantly, that means there's something, that they're mentally ill. Okay, and I told him when I wrote to him, I said, I'm a Judaized Gentile. I've taken on their qualities, their virtues, which are inquisitiveness and studying something before I speak on it. And he won't respond to me now. I've been tagging him and maligning him for days now, and he won't say a word to me.
Well, he's just a very shallow attention seeker. I've had dealings with him over the years. I mean, I guess he just enjoys getting people into trouble.
Well, he seems like a shallow attention seeker, yeah.
Mm.
And he's a socialist and a leftist, and yeah, leftists are not going to really fight the Noahide laws because it's a minority, because leftism is about making everybody equal, and that means you bring the minorities up and you bring the majority down, and Jews are a minority, and so they can't be pushed down because you're trying to equal the playing field for everybody here. So if Jews are a minority, then that means they need to be uplifted, right? They're in a position of no criticism. They can't be criticized because that would bring them down, and that would not be leftist to reduce the power of a minority.
I think what I propose would actually have an effect on the Jews and the Muslims, because it's sort of, I think it's really quite shaming for them. They're the ones who claim to believe in God, and they don't even do what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm saying they're all guilty of hidden idolatry. They're using irrelevant and irrational reasons for not doing what they know they're supposed to do according to their own narrative and their own understanding of their own identity, but they keep coming up with stupid reasons, about not admonishing those who claim that God has begotten a son, or not teaching the Noahide laws properly, all kinds of stupid excuses. And I think it would be, so I'm saying that we are ideally the best people to admonish them. It's like, you think you're so high and mighty with your piety and your holy whatever, and they won't even do the right thing. Not even after all these thousands of years. Well, only 1400 years as far as the Muslims are concerned. And I think it's kind of unanswerable, and obviously if we too make these arguments, we would get more attention than if it's just me making these arguments on my own. The fact that
Claire, you always reference authority.
Yes.
Imams have more authority than you. Rabbis have more authority than you.
No, they
Noahides
don't.
have
They
more
have
authority than you.
moral authority. Yes, in theory, they're supposed to be more learned than me, but they can't answer my questions, and that's why they flee. And
No,
don't
because you
engage.
ask them irrelevant questions about living in a city gone astray when it's not even applicable when there's no Sanhedrin.
I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, you have to stop saying that because we know it doesn't even apply in this age.
Well, actually, the Muslims have this idea that they shouldn't be moving to, places in the world where they're going to lose their Islam. I mean, it's called House of Peace and House of War or something like that. So
Well,
they're actually not supposed to go to places that, I mean, okay, they're not supposed to emigrate to Sodom and Gomorrah. That's kind of what it really means. And they've done it, They're basically kind of dug their own grave. And the thing is, we know enough about their stuff to call them out on it. And if you
I know,
ask,
but you can't call them out on living in a city gone astray. That you have to stop doing that because they're not going to care about that. I mean, it's not going to
well, they
make
know they're
them.
guilty of idolatry, and they have done nothing to stop the Christians from acquiring 3 global empires.
It wasn't time. Look, but also you have to
Okay,
know
now
that
is the time.
I
Now is the
know,
time.
and they are taking action now when the time is
We're
right.
going
Not
to make them accelerate their taking of action
oh well,
because they're just faffing
oh
around.
Oh, no, 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 no. You see, this is where we differ in that I'm accelerating them to destroy them. If, if the Jews accelerated right now, they would be hurting themselves. The Jews don't want accelerationism right now because it wouldn't help them. It would not help the Noahide movement for them to just burst out right now and be like, you're all idolaters and need to be beheaded. That would not work in their favor. It would not work in Noahidism's
Well,
favor.
what they could be doing is rank the four Gentile religions and say, look, we should have told you this sooner. You should give up your Christianity and replace it with Islam. Or if you're scared of it, secular Quranism.
They're
That's what they
not.
should be saying. That's
Yeah,
what I
I know.
want them to
That's
say.
not doing their duty. That's not that they're supposed to
Yes, it
spread.
is.
No,
They just don't want to be told by us what to do with their ideas because they've been misapplying their ideas.
no. The if they it, no, 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 no. If they declare Islam to be the quote unquote most Noahide, not Noahide, not Noahide compliant, most Noahide compliant, meaning it gets the highest failing grade. So if they say Islam gets the highest failing grade and so therefore it's acceptable to you, they have not done their duty.
Well, they still have a duty to point out which Gentile religion is the most Noahide compliant, and then that would provoke questions like why? Why didn't God give Gentiles a religion? And then the Muslims will say, yes, he did. He gave us Islam, and its rules are contained in the Quran. And then I guess the Jews will say, no, 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 nothing could be better than the Torah. And the Muslims will say, yes, 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 because the Quran doesn't have 36 capital offenses. And what are
36
the
capital
Jews going to
offenses that
say?
nobody would break. That nobody would break. So what? What? So what? You can't practice incest. Wow, wow. That's really a deal breaker for most people, Claire.
Well, actually, the Quran does say who you can and can't have sex with.
I know, but I'm talking about the 36 capital offenses for any Christian, Muslim, or Jew living on the face of this planet. They would not break any one of those 36 capital offenses in their worst nightmares. So I don't see how that really works in your favor. So you're not allowed to. What are
Of
you
course
not?
they would. They break the Sabbath all the time.
No,
All these
that's
Jews
Jews.
breaking
No,
the
no, no,
Sabbath.
Gentiles. Which one of the 36 capital offenses, except which doesn't apply to the what's it called, to the Sabbath? Which of those 36 capital offenses is a Christian or a Muslim Gentile going to think that they would transgress?
Idolatry.
What? No, they don't no, no, no. In their mind, if you listed the 36 capital offenses to a Christian, which one of those would they think that they're offending?
I don't understand your question.
Okay. From a Christian's perspective, not from a Jewish perspective, from a Christian's perspective, which one of the 36 capital offenses are they offending against?
Idolatry.
No, from their perspective.
Okay, are you saying that Christians don't think they're guilty of idolatry, and that's why
Well, they
they
don't
think
think they're
that?
guilty of idolatry, and there is no one of the 36 capital offenses that they would ever transgress purposely. You
No,
know, that
actually, sexual morality is a very good example because different people have different ideas of what is sexually acceptable. So liberals have this, as long as you have sex with another consenting adult, it's all right. Obviously, religious people disagree.
I know, but we're talking about religious Christians now. Religious Christians would look at those 36 capital offenses and they would say, I can keep all of those. That's not a problem for me.
Yeah, and then they'll get into trouble with idolatry.
No,
And
not
then
at first. No. The Jews are going to say you're not idol worshippers, so don't worry about that. Look at these 36 capital offenses. Is there anything here that offends you? And the Christian would say absolutely not, and the Muslim would say absolutely not. And so they would say, so then don't be worried about 36 capital offenses. Like, we have a higher standard of morality than Islam or Christianity. Islam is like they're less moral than we are. They have less scruples than we do.
Well, I think anybody observing Christians and Muslims now will know that Christians have no scruples at all and don't even have any principles that they could even think of adhering to. And anyway, Muslims would tell Christians, Muslims who are aware of the no-hide laws and your wicked, evil plans, would say to Christians that unfortunately, the no-hide laws do call for the execution of idolaters and blasphemers, and Christians are infamous for their idolatry and blasphemy. And the Christians will get all, "Ooh, well, that would, that nice rabbi wasn't being mean to us or anything like that." And then the Muslim can say, "Well, he's being nice to you now, but later when you agree to all his laws, he'll say, well, off with your head," or they will marginalize you.
I know, but most Christians are not going to believe that. Look, by the time any Christian begins to believe that they would be beheaded under the no-hide laws, it'll be too late.
Well, I don't think it's ever going to happen because Christians, okay, there are some no hides, and they will never get off the ground because they're not scary, and the media is not bigging them up into scary
Alan
people.
Cecil is scary.
I don't find him scary because
Because anti-democracy, anti-constitution, anti-freedom religion, pro-slavery, pro-rape. I mean, what else do you need
Is he
from him?
pro-slavery?
Yes, he believes in Torah slavery. He believes that if somebody steals from you, he shows that it's the law. If someone steals from you, you have to take them on as a slave. If a woman gets raped, she has to marry her rapist. Yeah, there are slave laws. There are slave laws in the Noahide laws. So,
What chapter is it?
look in Alan Cecil.
Yes.
It's the very mitzvahs applicable to Noahides. It's the very last chapter.
Okay, I'll have a read of that. Oh, that's not going to be very popular.
Well, neither is your slavery, but you think you're going to just get through swimmingly.
Yeah, because my slavery is humane, and yes, it is. I'm just saying the property of the slave will lie in the state, and the state will hire out these slaves to hirers of slaves, and there will be slave visitors to visit the slave to see that the slave is working properly and government property isn't being damaged by slave abuse or something. So.
Claire,
Yeah,
this sounds horrible.
Everything.
This sounds horrible, Claire.
No, and even more, I'm prepared to be secular Quranist. I don't know who would hire me. I mean, I suppose I could be,
paralegal,
a companion or something, a professional friend for lonely rich people.
Oh, Claire, you're crazy. Oh my God, Claire, you know what? How do you know you wouldn't be hired out by a coal miner?
Well, there's no point. I'm not a man. I wouldn't be very good at it. And anyway, there'll be miners who don't want me to undercut their wages or something. And I just wouldn't be, I think we should stop assuming that being a slave is just picking cotton and being worked to death in a tin mine. Obviously, if the government were rational, it's like, we're going to make you do the thing that you're good at. We're not going to make you do stupid things that you can't do. Obviously, if you're only good at cleaning toilets, we'll make you clean toilets. But if you can, if you're a banker slave, if you're a lawyer slave, if you're an actor slave, there's lots of things they can make you do. What kind of slave would you like to be, Vincent?
Well, I wouldn't like to be a slave,
have to choose if they. Okay, okay. Let's assume that you have. The condition is that you have manumission, and obviously you're going to choose the skill that you are most adept at doing, right? So you can quickly earn your manumission and pay off, and buy your freedom back again. So if you're a banker, you're going to say, well, I can still do banking. I may have done something wrong, but I can be your slave banker. I can be your slave lawyer or slave accountant. You could be, well, I
You know,
don't know,
you're idealizing this.
slave theologian.
You're idealizing this a lot. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of just assuming this is all going to go in a really right direction and that everything's going to be so wonderful with all this slavery. I don't think this is going in reality going to turn out so nicely.
I'm prepared to offer myself and be filmed in a drama documentary about how good a slave Claire is to this lonely rich person who wants a bit of company. I'll probably help around the house or something, accompany him to parties and cruises, whatever.
Like he could just get a houseboy to come with him. I mean,
But they wouldn't have my conversational skills.
Oh my god. Okay, actually, Claire, I do have to go because I have to go to work. But tomorrow we'll read again at 8 a.m. You Gentiles, okay?
I have to call my mother around
Now?
that time. So
Oh, okay.
no. But anyway, so you can do your reading while I'm talking to my mother or something.
Okay, I'd rather you be there so you can hear what I'm reading. So we'll see. I'll contact you tomorrow 8 a.m. You can let me know if you're talking to your mother or not.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for
You
coming.
too.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.